Welcome to the third webinar in our series of talks on issues surrounding people management, the difficult area of people management. Firstly, let me introduce myself. My name is John Raftery, and I'm the senior consultant with Leap. Leap are in business, or we're a business consultancy. We're based in Galway, but we work throughout the country, and we've even worked on some gigs abroad as well. We're over 25 years in business, so you have to see we're fairly well seasoned from the hairline, Mike's hairline and my hairline. And hopefully over that time, we've developed a good depth of knowledge and experience. We work across several areas, the SME sector primarily, corporate sector. We do a lot of work in the universities. We also work in private hospitals, hotels, essentially anywhere where there's people, we're there. We focus mainly on leadership development, management training, and some operational excellence as well. We've got lots of other interventions as well around that area, and we're going to discuss one of those areas today, the Talent Optimisation Program. So our keynote speaker today is Mike Gaffney. Mike is the founding partner of Leap, and he's currently the managing director. So as I said, Mike is going to talk to us today on one of our interventions, the Talent Optimisation Program. The focus of this program is to eliminate the gut feel, the gut instinct from hiring and promoting people within your organization. The aim of the talk, obviously, and the aim of the program is to improve your hiring and promotion process. So during the presentation, first of all, let me say that this presentation will be recorded and we'll make it available to people afterwards. So during the presentation, please feel free to add comments, ask questions, etc. And at the end of Mike's presentation, I will put the comments and the questions to Mike. So I'm going to hand you over to Mike now. Enjoy the talk, and I hope you find it interesting and enjoyable. Thank you.
Thank you, John, and welcome everybody. This talent optimization program that Leap have developed, we stumbled across it as we do in this space when a client came to us a number of years ago, and they had 3 people that they wanted to vet and see who will make the best director in their organization. And they wanted some tangible measure to go back to the 2 unsuccessful candidates primarily and say, well, actually, you're a good fit, but maybe not the best fit. And here's what you can do to develop yourself to get closer to being the right option when the next opportunity arises. Interestingly enough, the 2 people who didn't make get the position worked harder on improving the areas, and the person who got the role and had some talent, had some development needs, kind of moved on without the support. So that's where it came from, and we've noticed in the last 18 months, talent optimization has just been a demand from the marketplace and a demand from our client base. And primarily driven by 2 things. Firstly, how do the progressive organization ensure they select the right person when they hire? And I mean right fit for the organization. And secondly, that's because it's a challenge to find people now. And the second right future element is when we have the good person on board. Now, good, don't mean to be in any way disingenuous, but the right fit person on board, how do we ensure that we can develop them and secure their future and secure their contribution and increase their capability? That's what the talent optimization program looks to help organizations do. It's not a silver bullet. It's one element in effective selection and effective development of your key people. What it does provide is tangible information for the manager and the person looking to progress as to where we are now and what needs to be looked at to improve contribution and secure additional opportunities. So in that context, we go through the presentation. As John said, please jump in and ask a question at any stage of the talk. So what we're going to look through is poor selection decisions cost. And when we think of cost, we think of financial cost, but actually there's probably more debilitating costs on performance, morale, and engagement. So how do we load the dice better in our favor? We'll then look at the 7 steps, and hopefully they're fairly straightforward and make sense. Key benefits of having a talent optimization program. What you need to consider when you look to implement the program. and then we'll have the Q&A, and it's the next steps for people to progress their thinking on the program. So talent optimization is like a no-brainer. It's like people are our strength. It's essential for modern business success. So the cost of poor selection decisions, and this is not a new number, but they estimate that a mishire costs an organization 3 times the annual salary of the individual. That's the recruitment isn't cheap. Selection and the resources put into selecting the person costs. The dysfunctionality that it builds into the team, and the underperformance of the team because of the mishire, and then the cost of moving that individual out of the organization, they are quite substantial. So how do we load the dice to minimize the mishiring impact? The other elements regarding cost, and I think this is probably as substantial as the previous one, is that there's a lot of unconscious bias in each and every one of us. And those who want to develop and progress, sometimes they're not seen. One of the largest fast food outlet organizations in the country employ a lot of Asian workers from a different cultural and religious perspective. And they would, and the male managers would not see among their colleagues the potential of their female colleagues to progress into a management role. So that's a challenge, and I'm as I'm saying this, I'm sure us Irish probably have more and more adverse unconscious biases that we don't even acknowledge. But it's just an example of how individuals aren't being seen because of a cultural norm that is in the heads of the manager in this instance. So an organization can find a way to overcome that by using the talent optimization program. Other areas that it impacts if we get it wrong is the misaligned employee. They're out of a square peg in a round hole. And again, in this fast changing dynamic world we live in, the team are scrambling if someone is not on the same page. This can even get worse if you put in a manager who has the skills and knowledge but the wrong attributes. You put an autocratic manager into a very high performing democratic culture of a successful team, that can cause mayhem. So they may look like they have the skills, expertise, and experience, but they're not a good fit for that role. And then finally, the one that we come across a good bit in our roles in working with organizations is that the accidental manager got promoted into the role to manage the function that they were hard worker in previously, but the skill set that got you there is not the skill set that you need in your new role. And they recognize it's not the skill set, but they're scrambling to work out what is the skill set, what do I need to develop. And again, this program will enable them to bring clarity between them and their manager. This is where I am now regarding the attributes to be successful. These are the gaps. This is what I can address, and how can I line it with my natural personality type as well. So we need to help organizations step up from outdated approaches and embrace a more tangible, modern approach to selection and development of the team. So understanding talent optimization, it goes back to, first of all, having the frank conversation internally. Why does this, and bring the key piece of this at the start is bring clarity. Why does this role exist? What does the role entail? What type of individual will excel in that role? And why will they succeed as regards being able to embrace the role, develop their capabilities, and be successful? And organizations owe that to the individual if they're putting them in the firing line of taking the next step in their career. There is an onus on the organization to make sure they do everything to enable that person to be successful. So how do we help make that happen? The talent optimization program builds off 7 simple steps. We hope they're simple steps. So you can clarify and say, well, I'm confused. But the first piece, and in all endeavors to try and improve our thinking, clarity is a key part. So we talk about unconscious bias. There can be unconscious bias because the stakeholders have different views of what the manager's role is. So then they look for different traits in different people for the same position, and it just goes around the houses. And you'd be surprised the lack of clarity regarding what are the key reasons for the role and what is the key type of person to excel in that role. So through collaborative stakeholder discussion, the skills and knowledge become fairly quick on the table, but the other piece that takes a bit of work are what are the attributes that a person needs to have to be successful. If you're moving into a sales role, how good are you at hunting and taking the setbacks and dealing with the challenges of in sales? If there's a certain personality that will thrive in that space, and other personalities can be undermined by the challenge. So fit for purpose makes sense. When you define the ideal person, collectively the stakeholders create a success profile, and they're working with the psychometric assessment tool as they map that profile. So again, we're getting better buy-in, clarity, and ownership from the stakeholders. Typically, if you're profiling, say, a manager or a supervisor's role, the stakeholders would be the key person from HR, subject matter expert, one or two in the role currently, and the one or two of the senior managers who that role reports to. So 4 to 5 people in the room mapping out what the role looks like from the skills, knowledge, and particularly the attributes of the role. That's all well and good. We now have the role mapped and we've got clarity on the role, but now we need to ensure that the managers who will be the beneficiaries of the new hires are the beneficiaries of those promoted into a new role, that they understand what's happening and what's going on. So there's a training workshop for the senior managers to clarify what's going on here, why we're using talent optimization, what the profile looks like, and how you'll be able to review the individual candidate and against the psychometric assessment, and see where they need to develop and see where they excel, and have a piece of paper in front of both parties to work through. This is where we are now. This is where you are now as a person coming into the new role. This is where we'd like you to get to, and this is the steps we hope to support you with in making you get there. So it's not an interpretation. I'm great. You think I'm not great. It's gone beyond that. It's tangible for both parties, and particularly the incoming individual or the incoming manager. They're very receptive to having something concrete regarding, here I am now, here's where I need to get to, and here's how I can get there. The more explicit it is, the better. And because, first of all, the individual who is progressing usually are in a good place regarding attitude and contribution and mindset, you're actually helping somebody who wants to progress to give them another additional tool or mechanism to do so. So you're really reinforcing the professionalism of the organization in taking this approach. It's not whimsical. It's not, oh, we better get it done out of the way because we need to get you into a new role. It's done with rigor, and it's done in a very authentic way on the part of the organization. So we've trained the senior managers. We then have, if it can be 3 people for a senior role, say director level role. It could be, in other organizations, we use the candidate assessment to take 12 supervisors at a time, put them through the assessment, and identify which subset of those supervisors are now ready for a more substantial management role, and which of the subset need to develop some particular skills to be ready at the next opportunity. So the candidate assessment, and we compare them against the actual ideal profile, and then they can see the journey. Each individual can see the journey, and their manager can see the journey that they need to make. What this really helps the organization is now we have explicit development plans, opportunities for each individual, the successful candidate and the candidate who needs to put some more development into them to make sure that they're able to take on the opportunity of the new role when it arrives again. So instead of putting people on generic courses or one-off, or let's get the CPD points in the bag, the organization can now develop tailored interventions, tailored learning and development and support programs for each of the participants. And it should appear fairly obvious, again, what this is saying to the team members and to the and to everyone in the organization. We take our selection process, we take selecting you, we take developing you, we take supporting you in your development. We take it serious, because if we don't get it right, we won't be able to realize the potential that this organization has. So it really helps frame, and it does bring, in some ways, I'm smiling here as I say it, it brings the managers now have to step up a little bit here as well and apply a bit more rigor. If the organization is putting this level of effort and expertise into selection and development, well, you better demonstrate that you're, as a manager, are taking this seriously too, and don't sit in front of an aspiring candidate for a new role and be fuzzy about what needs to be done to help them progress. Okay, so I'll run through this fairly quickly regarding the different elements. So you examine all aspects of the position in defining the job, 5 to 6 categories. So if you're looking at, say, as to why the role exists, and we look at things in this space regarding, as a manager in an organization, a key category or attribute could be a good coach. So you're able to, and the one that always comes up when we meet companies, and maybe as a good coach, you're able to have that difficult conversation with your colleague. And Irish workforces have a recessive gene when it comes to conflict and having the difficult conversation. As a good coach, you're on the pulse of how your team's performing. You're also exploiting the opportunities for your top performers to take on more responsibility. So that could be a key attribute. A key attribute that in a key category could be collaborates well across the organization. So if there's a new initiative, you're well able to put your hand up and implement it in your area of responsibility, or within your peer group, you're there to help out if someone is challenged in their role. So you have 5 or 6 key attributes in the manager's role. I just picked managers as an example. And then so the overriding statement there was effective coaching, or it collaborates effectively. Workload management could be one regarding time and decision making. So there's kind of overarching categories that this is the profile of an effective manager, I'm saying this in this case, in the organization. And then you rank the categories. So your workload management might be lower than, say, your coaching ability to keep the team on track. So again, it's clarity, why the role exists, and what does it look like when someone is excelling in it, and what areas are they focusing on, and what attributes they need to have to focus on those areas. So it's a much more rounded perspective than here's the job spec. It's a much more nuanced and informative perspective for the individual. That's defining the job. So from profile to assessment, as I mentioned earlier, the stakeholders generate the assessment. You can go to 24 separate areas. If we are deploying this program with an organization that's bringing in product builders, so they don't leave that level of detail. It's a more simplified version of the assessment as to how do we ensure that a new product builder will be a good fit for the organization. So it's simplified. The next step, as I mentioned earlier, the managers need to know what they're doing here. So they are trained up to use it. And again, in all these situations, some managers love this approach because it gives them, I won't say ammunition, but it gives them clarity as well. It gives them a tangible way they want to help their colleague, and now they have a framework to do so. And again, we move away from subjective evaluation to objective evaluation, because first of all, we've objectively defined what the role is, and now we're giving everybody a chance to map themselves against it. So I suppose the key thing, we are looking at psychological drivers that are appropriate to the role, but we're making these drivers tangible, not whimsical, or they're tangible, that the logical, skeptical engineer like myself can understand. So then the other key piece of this approach it's visible and transparent, is that we'll do the comparison analysis. Here's the best fit position, and here's how the candidates map on the grid to that position. And again, the team, the individual really appreciate that. The health warning is the successful candidate ideally should also recognize where they need to develop, and don't just run off and not embrace the continuous development. Now, that will work when it's a step on their way, and they know that they're looking for the next piece of the jigsaw for them to progress towards. So that's something to watch out for. But it usually works well as well when there's a culture in the organization of learning and development, and people see that this is just one step on their journey. So they're locking into, I see the next sign on the road, and I'm aiming for that one. And again, we identify the needs for successful and unsuccessful candidates, and we help both parties develop and progress. And if you identify the typo, well done, you're alert. I didn't move on quickly enough so you couldn't recognize it. But anyhow, the eliminating bias and promoting diversity. And this, in some ways, the program really helps organizations. And you can argue, despite the veracity or otherwise of the program, because you're putting yourself out there to say that we're going to focus on objective behaviors. We're going to get beyond subjective. The opportunities to grow and develop is open to everybody. All you need to do is put your hand up and undertake the psychometric assessment. And by doing that, you're a winner, regardless of if you secure the position. If you don't secure the position, you have far better understanding of what you need to do to be able to secure that. Or an alternative, maybe an identical position arises, but there's still going to be commonality as to the areas that you need to develop and progress. And in all these things too, as we know in this world, it's not the skills and knowledge. There could be a behavior that's holding the individual back, and that behavior is probably a limiting factor in different types of roles that could become available in the organization. Okay, so the benefits of the optimization of talent optimization, and as I said at the start, this is not a cure-all or a silver bullet. It's one component in a rigorous approach to selecting and developing people in the organization. So the benefits, it will improve the quality of hire because there's a framework to work off, and there's an onus on the individual doing the hiring to be more rigorous as the organization is in ensuring a successful selection. So the days of reading the CV in front of the person that you're recruiting, well, you're kind of you know yourself that that will it wouldn't be within the cultural norm of the organization that is taking on a program like this. It enhances the professional development because again it works on behaviors that need to be addressed, which are usually the big challenge. And it ensures a tailored approach to the individual's development. We all have the much maligned performance review meeting, and we talk about professional development or personal development, and there can be two people. What would you like to do? And then it's a bit of a throwing the dart at the dartboard, as opposed to, well, would you agree that these are the areas that has been identified that you need through the psychometric assessment that would be of benefit for you to develop? And again, if there's agreement and understanding and we're working on the same page, and what you'll find too is that the supervisors going into management, for example, there'll be commonality regarding the development needs. So then you now build a curriculum in the organization that focuses on specific development needs, say it's time management and decision making, improved communication skills. So it's not just a random, this is what Mike wants or this is what Mike needs. It's actually an alignment of Mike and his peers along this is what to develop yourself, this is what you need to develop, and where are the common gaps among that peer group that we need to support. So much more tailored intervention, but much more curriculum based on the organization requirements as well. So organization alignment, if you want to grow and develop, you need that clarity on the role requirements and what success looks like. And there's clear line of sight for any individual, and the fuzziness is gone. Because you know ourselves, organization structure, there can be an awful lot of we all start in the same place regarding the structure in the organization, and there's some responsibilities in the role, but over time that can dissipate, it can migrate like the expanding galaxy, and there's a lot of divergence by the time we meet up in a year's time regarding the same role in different functional areas kind of morphed. Not all of it being negative, but it's good to bring it back to where we were, and maybe some of the morphing of that role in certain areas should actually be incorporated into a new review of what that role should look like. And finally, as I said at the start of the presentation, the progressive companies that we work with, there's two challenges. As they are growing and internally in this island and externally, they're looking at how do we select successfully, and when we get them, how do we make them as productive as possible as soon as possible, and by doing so, ensure that we retain them because they see a future, they see growth, and they see development. And they, as you can see, as John mentioned from our hairlines at the start, when we mention the younger workforce, well, that's a multi-generational workforce at this stage. But when we mention them, they are more savvy than my generation with regards to I need to keep developing and growing because this job I have now or this career will change and I need to be able to change with it and develop. So just to get towards the end of our presentation today, and when we were preparing this presentation, we because it's relatively new in the marketplace with our client base, we have anecdotal information that people are hitting the ground faster. They're more comfortable, they're more assured. There's confidence because there's more clarity. Definitely, we're seeing we've seen a few people who were out walking out the door turn around and say, "Well, actually, okay, I didn't get the role, but I've been reassured that I'm seen and recognised, and that I have potential to get a role that or an equivalent role in the organisation." So it definitely has helped the engagement piece of employees, and that feeds into retention. Team performance, we have strong anecdotal information that it's teams hear about it and hear about people having the opportunity to do the assessment, and other team members want some of that as well. So it's it does migrate nicely into organizations because it's built on the reputation of the rigor and discipline and objectivity that's applied to this process. Recruitment cost reduction, that should be a gimme in this space, and myself and John are working at how we can convert these anecdotal information and examples into hard numbers. That's again an opportunity for us. So then, just to a few things to bear in mind. I've done a lot of talking, so I'll go quiet for a moment and let you have a look at this slide yourselves. And we're coming towards the end, so we'll take a question and answer in a moment.
Okay, Mike.
So let me just.
Sorry, go ahead.
I just want to show you that's the question answer. Yeah, A1. Sorry. 100%. Thanks, John. Sorry.
Yeah. So no, thanks, Mike. That's very interesting, and I think the key thing I took from it is that it's very good for hiring, but in particular, I think it's very useful for internal promotions and managing the disappointment that people might feel. So thanks for that. Just looking at some of the questions, Mike, that have come in. There's two here, but I'm going to combine them into one because they're similar. Does the talent optimization program suit certain types of organizations, or how do we know it would work in our company? That's one question.
Well, I suppose it's better, more application in larger organizations because of the breadth of what they're looking to address. But that wouldn't be. I'd say that the bigger indicator would be culture and the culture of the organization and the progressive nature of the company. So, like we've seen it work in a legal practice of 20+ people. We've seen it work in a professional consultancy company that when we started the program with them, is about 100. They've gone through to 200, and we have corporate clients, and we have clients that in the hospitality sector that are a number in the 1,000 employees. So I think the bigger thing regarding is the culture, the progressive nature of the organization is the biggest requirement, is the biggest enabler.
Okay, thanks, Mike. Another question here is from somebody who's asking, how best could I sell this program into my organization?
Yeah, that's a very good question, because it can be hard. Say you're the HR expert or manager, it can be hard to be a prophet in your own land. And what seems to have worked well is to pilot it in a certain area. It can be a specific role. Let's try something new. It can be bringing in a new cohort into the organization. Let's try this approach. So what seems to work well is to pilot it, but you will need, if it's, say, for example, if it's the HR person putting the idea forward, they will need the stakeholders buy-in and into the process, or it would be very unfair to try and do it otherwise. So I would say, like Ryanair, let's try and pilot it somewhere.
Okay, thanks. And the final question here is, and you mentioned the dreaded performance management process earlier. somebody is asking, how does the talent optimization program align with the existing performance management framework?
A very good questions today, John. The simplest way is that it gives the individual and their manager a very tangible snapshot as to where they are regarding their performance and contribution, and where they need to look to develop, particularly if they want to progress in the organization to a role that requires greater capability than the existing role. So it takes away that blank stare across the table on the performance review regarding well, my interpretation of how well I'm performing and your interpretation are out of sync. But more importantly, too, with the progressive employee, how can I develop? What do I need to address? I'm hungry to progress, but I don't know what's holding me back. So it gives that ammunition to help both sides progress the conversation regarding the individual's development.
Okay, thanks, Mike. Okay, thanks, Mike. Very good, very interesting, and thanks again to the people, in particular the people who submitted questions, and thanks to everybody that has taken part. Just a reminder, as I said earlier, we will have a videotape of the webinar. We'll be sending it out to all of the participants. We'll also have an ebook developed from the webinar as well, which we will also be able to send out to the people who participated. And you'll also see that on our website, you'll be able to book time if you want to talk to either myself or Mike at any stage. You can book time directly onto our calendar, and we'll set up a Teams or Zoom call with you. Or else, in many cases, you have our email addresses. You can just drop us a line, and we'd be happy to talk to people about the talent optimization program. So in the meantime, I just want to wish you all well. Thanks again for your time. We'll let you go and have your lunch now, and hopefully we'll see you again soon. Thank you. Bye-bye.